Hello and a very good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of IIFL Home Finance, I am pleased to welcome you to the first Awas Par Samvad session being conducted in association with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. IIFL Home Finance is leading the movement by providing financial support as an incentive to bring together industry experts and housing developers and introducing them to green building technology within the milieu of affordable housing. A quick round of introductions. My name is Apurv Kaushik and I lead the Sustainability and ESG group at IIFL Home Finance. I will be moderating this session today, and please join me in welcoming our panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. Gaurav Shourie. Gaurav has a background in architecture, which he studied at the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. The topic of discussion for today's session is the role of indigenous housing technologies in transforming Indian construction sector using local materials and practices. So Gaurav, let us open this conversation today with you.
Thanks, Apurv. Thank you for the IIFL team to give us this opportunity to share our thoughts on this platform. So Apurv, there's multiple dimensions to your question. There is the social one, which I'm really looking forward to hear Tanaya's comments on those. There is, of course, the ownership one. The fact that the local people inherently have that knowledge of working with materials that they're familiar with materials that they've seen as they were growing up, which I'm looking forward to Prateek covering in his session as well. And what I would like to highlight is the aspect of the number crunching. The fact that a lot of these technologies really pose very stiff competition in terms of carbon emissions and global warming potential to a lot of what we call so-called green materials.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's these multiple dimensions, and if I was to simplify it a little bit, then the three legs of sustainability that United Nations divides sustainability into: ecological, economic, and social. I think all these three can help vote in favor of indigenous technologies and the preservation of indigenous technologies.
Our second panelist today, I'm told, is a house favorite, Mr. Prateek Dhanmer. Living in his native village of Murbad, Prateek practices the Design Jatra philosophy, not only in his architectural work and teaching, but also in his day-to-day routine. So Prateek, you've been doing a lot of work in this area, right? You've been exploring indigenous technologies for a while now. Do you want to share something on this?
There are a lot of young architects over here, and they should understand the number basically, because somehow this is a social responsibility. I always believe that Anna Vastra Nivara, and we as an architect, we deal with Nivara. So it's something we have, we are responsible towards the society. And if we try to understand our contribution, because we are like the second most polluting industry in the world right now. And we have to take the these charges in our hand, and we have to be responsible what we are building about. And the way Gaurav sir explains most of the topic, it's I 100% agree with him, because right now I'm working in the rural area where people's aspirations are driven with the cities. They look at a city as a benchmark. And when I was my team, we were doing a surveys in the rural area. The first reason people don't want to build mud houses is I will not get married. Nobody will give me a girl. The girl would not come to this particular house to maintain this particular house. And it was shocking. You cannot, as an architect, address this question, because it has so many layers. Okay, it has so many layers that the way they are looking at these particular technologies. And see, the India is a diverse country. Okay, we have more than 20,000 construction technologies in natural materials, whatever the materials which are available. And right now what we are doing is we are replacing all those more than 20,000 technologies by only two materials, which is steel and cement. And it's basically, I always give it as an example, if I am living in let's say on a coastal bed, okay, and I'm wearing these cotton clothes which are very thin, I cannot wear the same clothes in Himalaya. In Himalaya, I need to go for a thicker cloth. Okay, but what we are doing with the houses, that we have one prototype, okay, and we are just copy pasting that everywhere, all over India, and that's the problem. So it's like wearing a raincoat throughout the country, no matter what is the weather or what is the climate is, and that's where the problem is. And also there are like there is a resource depletion. See, right now the cement being a material, okay, which is considered as a pakka material, and when we were like working in Marathwada and we are doing the research, we saw that there were like almost entire village was built with these small cement houses, but all the houses were broken. So we asked, what's the problem? And they were like, usually they get this particular yojana in the month of February. So they start construction around March or April, and they finish it in the May. But during that time, they don't have water to drink. How they will cure the cement, okay, when they are doing the construction? And because there is no enough water to cure the cement structure, that structure becomes redundant, like, it just breaks down, and then that entire resource is for the West. And again, you won't be able to get the yojana again because you have already applied for it. You get only one chance for this particular yojana. So this is a big disaster which we have came across. And how to address that? So that's that time basically we had a lot of awareness campaigning in the villages, where mix the materials, use the cement wherever it is required, but you can use the natural materials, you can use the locally available mud. See, this is a Gandhiji's mantra, right, which is passed on to the Laurie Baker ji, and Laurie Baker ji actually practiced this particular mantra, where use the material within the 5 kilometers of radius. And what happens with that? Basically, your transportation cost goes down. Your masons who knows how to use those material, they are very skilled about it, okay. And because you are using the locally available material, you are not creating a problem in any other side. Like imagine, like we are using Kota stone. If you go to Kota right now, see the kind of pollution is happening because it's transporting Kota all over the world. So you are not, this is called the externalization of cost or material. So we prevent all these things. And we are also like, when you are cutting a tree in front of your eyes, you feel like planting one, okay, but that tree is getting cut somewhere else, you will never plant it. So that is the whole idea of localizing those material and localizing the scale when it comes to the housing.
Our final panelist today is Professor Tanya Verma. Tanya is the program head and coordinator for the Building Construction Studio at Sushant School of Art and Architecture, Gurugram. Tanya, you have worked, your research is focused on Bikaner, right? And there are a lot of structures in Bikaner that we know of, which are fairly old. What has your experience been?
So my experience at Bikaner has been very similar to what Prateek has mentioned. If you imagine the architecture of Rajasthan, it is very ornate, it's in stone, and it's to the general person, they just wow over it, and it's very beautiful. But the natives who are staying there are challenged by many aspects. One is the economic aspect of maintaining a house like this. The other is the planning aspect, because of the notion that they are staying in an old construction. They are restricted by the room sizes, they are restricted by the ventilation and the kind of gathering spaces that they have. Not the modern amenities are getting inbuilt into the houses. So the kind of peer pressure, because the ones who are building out of the walled city after the nuclear family has broken into smaller families, so they have built a new modern house with all the air conditioning systems and a 52-inch TV. That was the one major thing that they said, in this small Haveli house or in the courtyard house, I'm unable to get a room where I can show off in terms of putting a big television. So lots of other reasons were there for them to slowly dismantle. Now here the word demolish doesn't count. So in those reasons, there is this practice of dismantling a Haveli and packaging it in a neatly catalogued format and sending it off to Europe, and various other people in India also are clienteles for achieving, getting those to their houses. And the money that they are getting from just dismantling and selling out those houses, they are using to build a house which is, like to say in the modern day concept, the regular house in that same site, But after a few seasons, they realize that, oh, this house is not functioning the way it should be. They miss the courtyard because now they are no place for the family gathering in terms of any marriage celebration or any other place, because now they have the front yard and the backyard, which is totally useless in the summer and the heat.
Right.
So unless the whole process, the cycle one goes through, they don't realize the value of the indigenous. No matter how much textbooks or documentaries, or we did lots of awareness programs with the society and getting the groups together, and we told them, showed them pictures, showed them research papers and facts also. But they said, no, this is all for books, but the Wi-Fi doesn't work in my house because the walls are so thick. There is no proper sanitation and plumbing. My aged mother is finding it troublesome to navigate the house. So they had endless number of reasons, and as Prateek has really put it, the marriage being one concern for the tribal and for the kacha house, this cannot confine to a kacha house, but a traditional, more vernacular way of housing. But they had so many reasons to move to the more modern day conventional house. The migration, the climate disasters, the poverty, it is driving the urban as well as the rural population to various brinks. We should definitely educate them, show them the way on popularizing the mechanisms. Slowly it is the mud houses, the adobe houses have become very fashionable. So either it is the elitists who are wanting to get it done in the city, or it is the lowermost strata, the peri-urban housing, which is coming up because from the rural to the urban they are moving, and the skills they already have from their native villages when they are moving to the urban, and the resources are not there, the economics are not there. So they are confining to their techniques, but the material strength is not there because they are not finding the right material or the so we see the development of slums also happening. So it's a very vicious cycle and lots of layers to it.